when I consider everything that has taken place in the past couple of months, past few years, when I consider the injustice that I've been served, when I consider the negligence my police have served me, and all professional entities and public officials, the discrimination, the indifferent treatment that I was subjected to, it all sums up to something. That perhaps these people, real problem with me. Because, see, there has to be a problem here. The fact that the judge even acknowledges that there is a tumultuous relationship between a public official and a citizen acknowledges that there is an abnormal, unhealthy relationship existing. That enough signifies misconduct, official misconduct. So why is it difficult for a police to make an arrest or do a police report when an agency or an entity or even a corporation makes or takes an illegal offense against a citizen, a consumer, or a client? Because here's the thing. Corporations think that they are protected by the governors, by the states, and by the federal laws. And so they are committing white-collar crimes. Public officials believe the same. And so they are committing white-collar crimes. Police officers, they believe they're above the law. They are the law. And yet they can't even manage to lock up a president that has violated every American constitutional law. He has just redesigned every law to fit and suit himself. And we know police officers have the authority to lock number 45 up. Why haven't any Washington, D.C., any NYPD ruler locked this bastard criminal immigrant up? This DACA, okay? Because see, he wants to show an explicit indifference because people who suffer from such an ignorance that his culture suffers from, they don't really see themselves for what they really are. They design a sci-fi fantasy, a delusional placement, superior more often than normal, very unhealthy thoughts about themselves and their position. Ascribe status only means that this is a position, a job you worked for and that you have acquired because of some skill or sort. But we know police officers don't have any skills. You don't need any skills to be a police officer. You don't need a degree to be a police officer. And so that's a problem there. Because they don't even know the fucking law. So if they don't know better and they're coming into this profession with a bias, with a nationalist view, with this historical, cultural perceptions of humans and how they should be treated, you're already inducing a hostile environment for the community they're going to be serving, for the citizens that they're serving. And so the government is, in fact, violating humans, black, brown, Latino, colored, foreigners' rights, human rights. Human rights aren't given by a white man. I want you white people to understand something. I know you're really ignorant, really stubborn-minded, and you don't understand words for what they are. You like to distort the words to mean what you need them to mean for the moment, for you to cover up your bullshit or your friend's bullshit, or for you guys to just get along with things and for the law not to work for someone else so that you won't be injured, hurt, punished, or just won't see any consequences. And we see it all the time. The United States Justice Department, judges who are allowing murderers. See, at the end of the day, we have to separate a person from their ascribed status when they begin to act outside of their official capacity. Your Honor, do you know what the official capacity is? Because I do. And I don't have any legal training, expertise, or educational background. I had to teach myself because I have encountered so many unprofessional incompetent attorneys that just sat on their lazy asses for federal funds and neglected their duty to me. It took me a long time to catch on. But I don't really think that it's fair, and I really do believe it is fraud for someone to receive federal monies, dollars, resources, income, assistance, bailout, when they honestly are not financially eligible or entitled. Because if you're running $1 billion business, $1 million business, you just don't need that money. Poor people need that money, and that's why poor people can't use the money, because you guys are giving it to you all. It's another concern. Because you've given so much freedom with these forfeiture laws, and you don't really know the Constitution or the laws. That's why police are constantly killing people, because people are trying to just inform and educate them, but they're so stubborn-minded and ignorant that they don't want to listen. They're not open-minded enough to just understand, this person is just telling me something I just don't know. And maybe I should look at the positive side of it instead of looking like they're trying to have authority over me and control me. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to have so much authority and control asserting over a person who is right and you are absolutely wrong. Because when you're stealing people's property and criminalizing people and taking their driver's license from them, you are in fact putting them in a deadly situation. You know exactly the situation you're inducing. It's a harmful situation. It's an injurious situation. And so often we see judges allow these police officers and these public officials get away with their misconduct. Commissioners in these agencies, commissioners at the police departments, chiefs, sheriffs, deputies, these people are breaking the law. But they really don't know better. Because they weren't taught the law, nor were they ever punished, nor were they taught consequences. See, the thing is that when everybody else progressed and everybody else made so much change and sacrifice in this nation, this country, there is a culture of people that never made no progress or change. They just figured out a way to capitalize and monopolize off of the creativity and the ingenious of others, like hip hop and other things that people come up with. You know, being the business corporate mind behind it. Now they're figuring out that people don't need them to be the corporate mind. And that's becoming their concern. Do you know that people really depend on you people to keep them safe? To help them when they're hurting, vulnerable, being abused? And you're like their last stop drop. Okay? And, you know, when people have to come up with plans of escape or come up with, you know, a means to survive because they have considered their realistic situations and that they don't have an outlet. You know, I don't never think that there should be an entity, an agency, a public officer, officials that should be able to infringe on such rights. Because it complicates and disrupts the person's life. It debilitates them. And it puts them in a hardship. And then it's like one of those things where, like, you know, where crimes are always committed and someone has pretty much lured someone into a situation and it was all based off of a lie, and then that person never, you know, suffer any consequences. They're never punished, they never go to jail, you know, they played a game with someone's mind and now they're just released from it. But perhaps someone else was hurt by their actions because you stirred all this up, you led this to happening from your actions or inactions. And so often people don't consider the whole thing. But public officials know better. They know the effect it's going to have. They know the dynamic effect it's going to have in that person's life because they do this for a living. This is how they survive. And so that's why it's a problem when you have all these people conjoined, because you make it so much easier for them to conspire with one another, to retaliate against a citizen. They have so much access to a person and this person's personal business because here, this is the system. And so that's why I think that it's time for the system to be separated, because this system right here that is conducting its work, that is charging us, that is making all this money, capitalizing off of our lives and our hardships, stealing from us, stealing our human rights from us, stealing our money, our income, our savings, you know, stealing our property from us. They're not working for us. They're working for each other. And so we need to be separate from that. And people need to start to consider that. It's not harmful. It's by choice. You know, just like a sexual orientation or a lifestyle. But people really have to start to consider the reality of what these people are doing to us from them not working for us. This sad situation with this Kanika girl. Rest in peace to this angel, and God bless her family with all respect and support. I'm so proud of my community right now. And it's like, what has happened to her is a perfect example. They are so used to us not saying anything. They are so used to being able to sweep things under the rug, cover it up, and move on with their daily task and do it all over again. And work together to conspire with contracts and financial agreements and deals like gangsters and, just no good people, savagery. And to profile people and to hurt them. And I believe that's what happened in this young girl's case. Because these people need organs, and they know we have good organs, and they're always trying to manipulate a situation because they're opportunistic, okay, to their monetary gain. And so if they see someone doing something out of place and they think we're going to manipulate it against each other, then they're going to try to do that because we just cannot allow it anymore. And what I'm saying is that I'm not going to stress it enough. I'm going to continue to talk because these people do not need their jobs. And we know that the government is going to fire them because these are their colleagues. These are their friends. These are their family members. They have a history of these perceptions, a history of these natural behaviors, a history of this inherent savagery. And so we can't change that. They have to change that. They're the only people who haven't made any changes. They pretend they're good pretenders. But that's because they want their jobs. They want to be able to make money in our communities, in our schools, in our hospitals. But we don't really need them in hospitals because if they're not diagnosing us and if they're not really doing anything for our pain, they're not really working for us, are they? If they're always going to use an excuse about a white person's heroin addictions or opioid addiction to not serve you, and people know that's just not our cultural behavior. We don't come to the doctors to get drugs to use. This is not a time any longer of no consequences. And if judges will not punish these criminals, they need to be punished. Because they are not going to learn until they are punished, until they see consequences, until they experience it, until they know how it feels when it's done to you. Look at the poor OJ. You're in jail for stealing your own stuff, for being lured into coming to get by your own things. Like, come on. How you're constantly manipulating people to pay for their own stuff. Police, I want to say, when people call you, they're calling you for help. When they call you and they request a report, that is a part of your job. Part of police officers' job is to investigate as well. Police officers forgot how to do the work. Now, I'm not saying all of you. There's some of you that are amazing. I think that you're still heroes. I wish I could be where you are to support you. I'm a patriot. I'm a writer. I'm a publisher. I'm a diva doll. I'm a businesswoman and an entrepreneur. So trust me, I have nothing against professionals. I have nothing against public officials. I have nothing against my country. I have something against nationalism. I have something against capitalism. I have something against racism because those things have affected my life so much more than the experience of ever being a grieving parent. And so what I'm saying is when you have the experience that I had and you know the enormity of how things can affect you because your experience is quite unique than others. Nobody else can take that from me. You can denigrate my experience. So when you encounter me, I expect you to do your job. And if you don't know how to do your job, you can tell me that. Or maybe you should go get someone that can help you do your job. But the arrogance, the theft, it's not acceptable anymore. Okay? And it's time for us to go over your heads. You stole from an American citizen. You know, all of you with all the actions that pretty much have been done, when agencies and entities and the government and police all begin to take an action separately, each space, that is a conspiracy. And when you know that this person has an issue with one of these domains, you know that is retaliatory when each start to do something negative or take a negative action or an action toward the person. You kind of know, like, okay, they don't want to help this person. They don't want to do nothing for this person. They don't like this person. But let me tell you something about doing a job. None of that matters. You are paid to do your job. If you want the credit, of it being an officer or commissioner of an agency and a person that is actually working, then you need to be doing your job, because some of us aren't paying attention and some of us are paying attention and some of us are actually watching you. And I happen to be one of the people that are watching you. Don't misconstrue that's points in a person's life and take it as if they're just totally not paying attention. I mean, the ceiling fell on my head when I was about, I think, 12 years old. Philip Livingston Magnet Academy in Albany, New York. And my mother never recovered any money from them. They never paid my mother. But I had memory problems and I suffer from very extreme migraines because of that. No one ever paid the government, the state, the school system, the Board of Education. No one compensated my mother for my injuries. I'm 35 and I'm still suffering from those injuries. No doctor ever said, all right, Tamisha, this is what you're going to have to do to be able to accommodate for your attention span loss, for your focus, for when you're distracted. You're going to have to use adaptive equipment, Tamisha, because it's going to become hard for you to keep track, and maybe at times you won't remember because you're already predisposed to certain things, what happened or what's going on. And then I go with numbers and shapes and stuff and putting all that together, I become very confused. And, so I have to record and keep track of myself a lot. That is something I have to do so that I can function normally. Some people, you just do it normal. But what I've learned is because of that, over the years, it has affected me. And so now I have tried to gain control of that negative issue so that I can function and be able to organize my thoughts in my life and what's happening to me in such a way. What I have learned is that people are liars. They're very manipulative, and often it's people in power, authority. And they're misleading you and they're lying to you about things. And so you're never getting the answers, you're getting a runaround. And the one who's really benefiting from this is them. They're keeping you from the knowledge and from your stuff so that they can do, whatever they would like to with it. They can have their own intentions. Pretty much, let's sum it down. They're doing what they want to do and they're getting what they want out of the deal. But you're just totally deprived. That is a deprivation. You don't need a judge. You don't need a white person to tell you that. See, the way the system is strategically designed, it's almost as if in every instance, even for your reality, and we know how hard it is for them to even do anything because they're always doing paperwork. Or to even answer calls back. You can't even get a pediatrician to answer calls back or have immunizations for your children. And they can be knowing your child's going to be here in another year and still won't have those immunizations on the day your child comes. So these people are very used to not doing their job. They're very used to creating a situation of confusion, inducing harm to people, and they're very used to still getting paid. And so they're not punished. And so when you become so comfortable in that, it's natural behavior, you're just going to keep doing it. It's just like a man cheating on a woman or a woman cheating on a man. You get away with it and everything's still cool. You're going to keep doing it because you don't really realize you've crossed your boundaries because no one told you that and no one ever punished you. And that is what we are seeing because it's white people committing the crimes and white people we have to go to report the crimes too, and then they want to do this complaint process because then now you are exposing your complaints to all these different white people, so you can't really target exactly what person is causing harms to you because they have shared the information with so many of them by having you do it, so that then they have access to you and knowledge of you to hurt you. Do you really need a judge to tell you that someone's conspiring against you, retaliating against you to hurt you, and you don't know these people? They've never did work for you. You've never worked for them. And any time you've actually needed them, they are always making it seem as if they are in a Twilight Zone, trying to put you in it, as if your reality isn't really taking place. Oh no, don't see what's happening. We want you to see this. It does not make sense. Police officers cannot allow people to break in people's homes. Police officers cannot not do a police report when a person unlocks one of the locks of a person's home. That is a burglary. Okay? Okay, yet the person who lived there was behind the door holding the bolt lock. They would have got in. But the police don't know that. That person knows that. Okay, the robber don't know that. The person knows that. Because the person has better skills themselves. Because the person has been prepared their whole life for this type of savagery. That's why the person has an illness of isolation, anxiety when being in crowds of white strangers. You can't change the reality for a person, especially when you're constantly reminding them it's a reason to be fearful of you. It's a reason to be paranoid. It's a reason to be on guard for you, because you're constantly doing something illegal. You are constantly doing something wrong, and you're constantly lying for each other. And so Americans, we need to stand up. We need to separate ourselves from the Republican and Democratic Party, because really they're all one party. All these people, majority of them share the same perception. We need a whole nother party with a whole nother group of people that has a whole new set of rules and guidelines and regulation and policy that understands what law means, that understands how to allocate it, understands how to adhere to the law, and who understands that indifference means when we punish some and we don't punish all. Only white people don't understand that, because they are the ones who really suffer from ignorant, stubborn-minded savagery. They don't want to admit it. No one really wants to say it. It's not a nice thing. But I believe until we start to deal with the reality of ourselves, and until others start to deal with the reality of their actions and who they are, you can be nice to your family members. You can be nice to your friends. That does not really give you success in life. That is not really who your character is. People pretend all the time in front of people they know. But then we find out all these awful things about these people that all these white people honored, saluted, and thought was the greatest people on earth. We find out they're pedophiles. We find out they're murderers. They're cheating savages all the time. And white people are disappointed too, but they're only disappointed because they were lied to. They feel they were fooled. Well, how the hell do you think we feel when we're not just fooled or manipulated or lied to, but we're actually injured and harmed by that same type of behavior? There's a new following in town, and I suggest you people start standing up and following it. Subscribe, follow, donate, contact me, whatever you like. Share it with someone interested in a person like me. But it's time for us to stand, because we're not getting justice. The children aren't getting justice. Our men are not getting justice, and we're all being divided. And right now in this country, we have a public enemy that has opened up the gates, opened up the cages to let all the animal savages out, and that puts us all in harm's way, because they are the ones in control of those cameras, in control of that paperwork, in control of those laws. And they need to start to be punished. It's like, how could an officer act as if a break-in, an attempted break-in, it's nothing. As if it's nothing, no crime committed. It didn't hurt the people who were living there. It didn't hurt the people who knew what was going on, who are paying to live there for safe and comfort. And the children involved. No questions asked. Are you okay? How are you doing? No type of human regard. No, instead what they do is traumatize the person even more, put the person's paranoid in a whole nother state. Because the person has to actually sit through them denying them their rights to protection, failing to prosecute the individual that just tried to hurt them, that comes from the same county that has committed many crimes and conspiracies against this person. So it's not a coincidence that particular person ended up on these stairs. Oh no, that particular person worked with that particular person's child's father. It's not a coincidence for this person to believe that maybe perhaps the burglar was sent here, and perhaps that's why the crime was covered up, because it is a pattern that they don't document things. And so if they don't document things that is happening to us in reality, in fact, then it hasn't happened, according to one of them, because that's what's going. Well, you never called, you never reported, you never complained. Well, what about the person who's complained so many times, called so many times? What about the person you just don't want to help? What do you do in that event when a person isn't being served? Who do they go to when no agency, entity, or official or officer want to serve them? And this person hasn't committed a crime nor did anything to them, but be a person that questions their rights and their freedoms, that just wants to know where their stuff is, or just wants quality health care for their children, or just wants services that they need in an emergency situation. Because an emergency is now. It's not a month later. It's not 28 days later. It's not 3 months down the line. It's not 6 months down the line. It's not 4.5 years down the line when the judge decides to get to you, when he knows you're very distracted because another judge perhaps called them. But then how could you prove that until you're given the opportunity by these same people to subpoena these same people's records? And so they put you in a situation where they exploit you, and they have access to all sorts of things of you. But they never give you access to FOIA requests or anything else. So you leave it almost as if, it's nothing going on wrong against you. Whereas all these things keep happening, and we know why people don't see a pattern of things happening ever as a coincidence. So why should I? I've never believed in explanations anyway. I don't believe in that. What I do know is that conspiracies do exist. What I do know is that police officers lock conspirators up all the time for 7 years even, just for being on the phone with a person they love that is committing crimes. They don't have any fucking evidence. And so that it's a discriminating and different treatment that we see being dispersed to us from whites. It's not coming from no one else. It's coming from whites. Even the blacks that are conditioned by the whites, they're working under the whites. They're doing what they gotta do because they worked hard for that status and position, and I'm learning that. And so they don't want to give up their job and position, and they like doing what they do, and they like to be with their colleagues, and they want to believe in their colleagues and their friends. But we know the reality. You're just a piece in the game of life to get them what they want. Okay? For you to do the dirty work for them, because most often they're going to throw you to the front line to do the dirty work for them so that they can say you're the one at fault. I don't believe that, though. I always believe the boss, the superior, is at fault because it is on you. You should be making sure your business is running right. You should be making sure everyone's doing what they should be doing, and everyone is doing what they should be doing, abiding by the law. Especially when you're a public officer or official, you don't have an excuse not to be recorded, nor do you have an excuse not to be doing the right thing, nor do you have an excuse not to know the law. You should know your job. And what I see is constant excuse, constant dismissal because these people don't know their job. That's because they don't know how to work. They know how to steal, they know how to kill, and they know how to lie. And that is the pattern we see consistently with this culture.